This is the Red Press. I'm Mark Magill. We're down here in Lovelock's Coffee Shop in the heart of Liverpool city centre. My guest today was bribed to come here by the promise of free food, and it is Ian Doyle, Liverpool ECHO's chief LFC writer. He's had this free cake. He was professional enough to eat it.
Yes, it was
very
nice. It was too.
Enjoy it?
Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, salty caramel recommended.
Excellent. So let's dive straight into it.
Yeah.
I mean, first and foremost, we're recording this before the Southampton game on Wednesday afternoon, so we'll probably skip over that a little bit. And I also think Carabao Cup final has got probably more juice left to squeeze out in terms of content. Liverpool won a cup, so let's try and exploit it as much as possible. You were there on Sunday.
Yep.
I've got to say, it seemed like a different experience of other League Cup finals. I'm not saying it necessarily felt more important, but the atmosphere seemed different. It seemed like everyone was having fun, whether it was coming from the stands, after Jayden Klopp got over his little thing with the referee, there was a point in the extra time where he seemed to be, transcendent and just seemed to be enjoying the moment. Liverpool bench certainly were. The Liverpool injured players in the stands certainly were. It just seemed like a real fun atmosphere. Is that like a fair take of how it felt in the stadium on the day?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to bear in mind that there were a few things that made it quite unique. I mean, the first one, obviously, there's that kind of sense that it could be Klopp's last final. I mean, they've got a chance, haven't they, in the FA Cup? Well, we're recording still in the FA Cup. They've certainly got the Europa League as well, which that's two chances of possibly getting to a final. But there's still, the law of probability says that's probably going to be it for Liverpool in terms of Klopp reaching finals. So he was quite keen to enjoy it. The fans were keen to enjoy it. And then you had the added complication or intrigue over the fact there were so many players not playing. And there was that kind of, will Darwin Núñez make it? Will Mohamed Salah make it? Will Dominic Szoboszlai make it? And early on during the day we got word that, well, actually none of them have made it. So there was kind of that thing for all the fans who were going there. It was, at any other time, for the full choice teams, Liverpool are favourites. And Liverpool were favourites as early, as recently as possibly 2 weeks ago, probably 10 days ago, to win that final. Well, the minute the teams come through, and then you've seen that Liverpool are missing all of their players, the 11 of them, becomes 12 when Gravenberch gets injured within about half an hour. And you suddenly realise that, well, actually, they're up against it here. And I think the fans, certainly, I mean, the clip's been shown quite a few times now during the extra time period where they do the LA.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll mention that in a bit as well. The fans got onto that, so they were quite keen to enjoy it. And the other thing as well is that most of the players who were there, the leading players, as you say, weren't playing, but they were actually watching on the touchline, and it's unusual that really, because normally they're out there doing something about it, but they were like the fans, they were just all sat there going, oh, I hope we can win this. And because they got such a strong link with Jurgen Klopp, the way that he's built Liverpool since he came in, one of the first things he did was introduce everybody to each other who hadn't already been introduced, whether it be, the assistant manager or somebody. So basically, so it's that kind of like all one club mentality, and it's never been more prevalent or more apt or more needed than at Wembley on Sunday, and everybody bought into that, which is why you saw when he scored. We've seen the clips of like Darwin Núñez supposedly injured, he's legging it onto the pitch, knocking Curtis Jones out the way.
It is incredible. I mean, it's one thing to say, Jurgen Klopp's building this, idea of the community and everyone appreciating each other, but it's another thing seeing it in action. And footballers generally aren't known for, compassion for people who are out injured or the person that's taking their place or what. Yeah. But to see it in action, as you said there, Darwin Núñez just going absolutely mental when he has to kick the ball in the game, and all the players are the same in the celebrations afterwards. You hear people like Adrian and what have you, who's not had a sniff of the game, but he's having the time of his life. Yeah. That's amazing to see. I mean, I think that's like, is that like the Klopp, or is cheesy thing to say? Is that the Klopp effect? Well, as we're seeing it in real time.
It is to a point. I mean, let's be honest, most successful clubs, if you win, you're going to be happy, and there is that kind of sense of togetherness.
Yeah.
That's the way that you win stuff, which is probably why Chelsea didn't win in the end, because they're not quite there in terms of, what they would ideally like to be. Because somebody else, Paul Gorst actually was, who sat next to me at the game, who works for the Echo as well. We cover Liverpool, as you know, and he said Chelsea are just a bunch of players, whereas Liverpool look like a team. And I think that became very much evidence during extra time, where better people than me, Jamie Carragher, pointed out in his Sky Sports analysis, kind of echoing what we were saying at the time, going, only one team wants to win this. And that was partly because obviously Chelsea has something to lose because they had, as I said before, they had become favourites during the course of the game.
Feel the pressure in the game.
Yeah, and I think, and the interesting thing there is that they still had a lot of young players out there. They just were players who'd either been bought for an awful lot of money or played a lot more games, had much more experience at a senior level. Exactly. So, but they'd never really had to deal with this before, being favourites against a team that, up until a couple of weeks, as I said before, 10 days ago, would have been favourites. So there's kind of nothing to lose for Liverpool. But yeah, that togetherness, that bond, and I think it's basically the best way of explaining it is if, say, you just go somewhere with your mates and you're there with them for 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and then even the people who don't normally get that involved are suddenly thrust right centre stage and have to do something because you can't. So all the effort that you put in is now they're going to have to finish it off, and they were able to do that. I think that's probably why the celebrations were so. They were pretty intense, like at the end. I mean, obviously, if you're playing a cup final, you score a winner in the 118th minute. There's going to be a lot of delight, but there was an awful lot.
Especially if you scored at this.
Exactly, and it's the same player at the same end who scores the goal from kind of the same from a set piece again. I think there's that, but there was something a bit different with the celebrations. I mean, you only had to look at like someone like Cody Gakpo, who, he hadn't won a trophy with Liverpool before, but he played in the World Cup quarter final, and at the end of the game, he was like, he was almost in tears, basically. And I know a lot of people mentioned before about the League Cup, and it is the lesser of all the trophies that Liverpool are going to go for this season, and any Premier League team's going to go for, but there was a sense that was something a bit special because of all the things that we said. And at half-time, I said, no matter what happened, at half-time and extra time, I put on Twitter and said, no matter what happens in the last 15 minutes or possibly penalties, you can't take away from the fact this has been one of Liverpool's most extraordinary performances in a cup final ever. And the fact that they then went on to go win it underlines that.
I think that was palpable watching it at home as well. That was coming across. I think that exception, the moment the fans, players, management were just enjoying the experience rather than worrying about the outcome, whichever way. I mean, I'm glad it didn't go to penalties. Even if it had gone to penalties, I think Liverpool, it would have been very interesting to see who was going to take them for Liverpool, because you'd argue that the technically more proficient ones would have been a lot of the youngsters, but would you have really given a youngster, say Jayden Danns or Bobby Clark, a penalty ahead of Joe Gomez? I don't think so. I'd see, and I think if obviously the potential there for a kid to be a massive hero, but it would have been a cruel way for one of those youngsters would have been taking a penalty.
Yeah,
I think it would have been like a really, really terrible way to lose a game, but obviously it didn't come to that.
Yeah, it would have been a lot of pressure, and I think it was kind of apt that it was Van Dijk who scored it, because he was obviously the captain, he was the leader, and the more the senior players dropped off, whether they were just too tired or they got injured, the more he grew in terms of responsibility, and he stepped up to it. Stepped up to it, and I mean, you could tell when he scored the goal, he was happy like on the floor, but he was absolutely shattered as well.
Yeah, I thought he'd done well to kind of put that first goal, the start goal, behind him.
I think there was a little spell, wasn't there, straight after that goal where Chelsea got they kind of, funny enough, it's where they ended the normal time very, very strongly with a lot of chances. I think it was after that goal that the game kind of changed. I think Liverpool thought, well, we got the reward because they'd been the best team until that point. And then they started to tie. Chelsea came into it, made the more experienced subs, got the chances, but Gallagher made the saves. And I do think Liverpool did very well to get over that. And I think in some ways, again, the fact that they had so many youngsters out there by that point helped, because they were like, I don't care whether that goal's gone in, I'm playing in a cup finally, this is amazing.
Yeah, and it's not like they just came on and went through the motions or made up the numbers. There was like a significant contribution from them all, really. I mean, are those players, which one really stood out to you on the day?
Well, I've seen a lot of the academy players over the last couple of years, and Bobby Clark's always been one for quite some time where I've said, look, he's going to be a player, he's going to be a player, he's going to be a player. And he got injured, I think it was August, September or something. I think it was September, actually. And he missed the whole Europa League group stage, and he missed the early rounds of the League Cup. And he would have played. He would have played. But then, of course, the minute he gets fit, they bring him on against Arsenal in the FA Cup, and he helps them see out the game. He did a great foul on Declan Rice, which,
shows... It was 0-0 at that point as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, when he brought him on,
Again, that kind of a precursor to Klopp bringing over lads on.
Yeah, because
on Sunday, it's like... He brought
Bradley on as well, and that was the first time he played in an awful long time. Well, certainly to that extent. And because he's another one who would have played loads of games at the start of the season, but he got injured I think it was in July. I think it was because he played the early
he was out for a while,
friendlies.
wasn't he? Yeah.
Played the early friendlies in Germany. Didn't go on tour to Singapore. And we thought, what's up there? And then obviously didn't play. So these aren't overnight successes. These aren't players who come from nowhere. And that, well, we'll get on to Jayden Danns in a minute. But James McConnell's another one. Now he's somebody who he played in Germany in the friendlies. He went to Singapore, so he'd been in and around. He obviously started the FA Cup game against Norwich last month, set up the opening goal for Curtis Jones. So also, it's not just that they've been playing the games; it's that they've been in training with the first team for months and months and months on end. So while we didn't see them out on the pitch, certainly in first team games, for them they've been training every single day in and around all the senior players. So the senior players who were left on the pitch didn't have any. They didn't have any qualms like going, here's James or Mac, if they call him, and then here's Bobby. Just give them the ball because we know what they can do because they've done it time and time and time again. Slightly different with Jayden Danns, obviously, because he'd come from, not nowhere, but it was still at the start of this year that he was starting to regularly get a game for stepping up to the under-21s. But what I would say about him is that wherever he's gone so far, whether it's in the Premier League 2, whether it's the under-18s, whether it's the Youth Cup, he always looks like he's going to score. Yeah. He always gets a chance, and he did that in the game against Luton where he made his debut last a couple of days before the final. He ended up kind of having an involvement in the last goal for Harvey Elliott. And within about 2 seconds of coming on, he has a shot in the final.
He does not shy.
Exactly. Yeah. And the cliche is the pitch is the same size and the goals don't move. So if you know to put it in, then that's not going to change. And I think for him, it's be interesting to see what happens with him. Because he's the one, as I said before, who's come out of seemingly nowhere. You can't see James McConnell or Bobby Clark going back and playing regularly with the academy now. They've made that step in the same way that Gerald Quansah made it as well. In the same way a few years ago, Callagher made it as well. Be interested to see what happens with Danns, see whether he ends up going back or whether they just go, well, actually, he's that good, he can just stay around the first team and he's going to get chances now.
I think, obviously, Diogo Jota's out for a little bit. Who knows what will happen with the other, forward players? So it could still be opportunities for him to, get more game time. I mean, we've seen it. Obviously, Conor Bradley is the prime example of a player getting the opportunity and taking it above Danns. I thought it's incredible what he's got. Because it's not big. I think it's a big difference for an academy player to come through and play in the first team. We see it all the time, especially in the Carabao Cup, Europa League, or what have you. But I think from maybe the second, third game this season, he went from being that, bit more cautious, bit more of a steady Eddie, into I'm going for it. Well, really playing on the front foot, and it was incredible to see.
Well, for his instance, that comes from two things. One, where all of them is that, as I said before, they've been training with the first team that long. They're not going to go off and do something that they don't know what to do. They know exactly what they need to do when they go out on the pitch, and get alongside players that they played with for months on end. But with Conor Bradley, he actually made his debut back in September 2021 in a League Cup game at Norwich, and Kay Gordon played that game as well. That's how long ago it was. But he had a full season at Bolton last year, in which he was clearly he was the player of the year.
He was really highly regarded.
And he played in a cup final at Wembley, the EFL Trophy, where they beat Plymouth 4-0. And he was one of the best players on the pitch. So it's like him going out and stepping out at Wembley. He's like, well, I've already done this before. Yeah. And you could kind of tell that, as soon as he got into that first, it was incredible, really, that he hadn't played a Premier League game, or certainly not a Premier League start. And I don't think it was a Premier League game at all until January. Yeah. And he got the Premier League Player of the Month for, the fans' Player of the Month for that month.
He just hit the ground running. Yeah. It was incredible.
And he wasn't doing anything that he didn't know about. He wasn't doing it. Wasn't being asked anything on him that he didn't know what to do. It was Klopp just saying, right, we know what you can do. This is why we picked you. Go out and do it.
He scored a few goals as well, didn't he?
Yes.
He was what he played on loan.
Yeah, I mean,
like a wing back.
Yeah, he was a wing back at Bolton, which is what made it interesting that he ended up going on the right wing in the cup final when Gravenberg had to go off and he kind of rejigged things a little bit. So
thinking on the feet, really, on the bench there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because again, that shows that
they know what he's got,
and also he's played in kind of that position before, so they weren't asking anything different of him.
He doesn't look kind of out of his depth in that final third. We've seen it a couple of times when he's again playing on the front foot. He's making chances for himself. He should have maybe had a couple more goals this season.
Yeah, he said that himself, hasn't he?
Yeah. It's that's been the most impressive thing for me, really. Not the fact that he's got the game time. It's just like he doesn't want to let go of it. And obviously Trent's going to come back at some point, and then there's some questions to be asked about what happens then. But I think there's no doubt that Conor Bradley has come in and took that chance, and now hopefully that'll inspire the other players around them to be able to do the same thing. I think obviously as you get further up the pitch, that becomes a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
If you're a forward, it's when you kind of you judge on your goals and stuff like that, it's much more difficult to make that impact, that next step, next level. But you think a lot of Danns?
Yeah. Jayden Danns, From what I've seen, he is that kind of player. And of course, he's from good stock, isn't he? Because his dad used to be a professional footballer. He's the assistant manager at Tranmere, and he's a Scouser. So he kind of he ticks all the boxes.
Local hero. Did he have an issue with a growth spurt?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is that he did, because, we remember being young back in the day. Yeah, it's a long time ago. Yeah. Well, some people kind of grow at different rates to others. Some people don't even grow at all.
I'm still waiting.
I know. So it takes a while to adjust to the body. And I think actually, I can't remember the name of it. There's an actual condition that he had, which is kind of quite common. It's quite common in teenagers. But he's now learned how to, live with his own body, as it were. He's adjusted to it. He knows what he can do and what he can't do, and he's using it to his advantage. And when you add on he's somebody who, in the last 18 months, the progress that he's made, regardless of whether he played that final or not, or played against Luton, just getting through the academy and going through the ranks there, the progress he's made is incredible. And he's got that thing where there are players at that level who scored a lot of goals. We could name 2, 3, 4, but they never quite make the step, because that they probably just don't have either the physicality, they don't have the speed, they don't have the kind of, not experience, but the kind of the know-how. They don't fit in with exactly how the team wants to play. Yeah. But with someone like Jayden Danns, he kind of ticks a lot of those boxes. And it just will be interesting to see, because there's only 12 weeks left of the season. It's not that long. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him between now and the end of the season, because whoever the new manager is that comes in is going to be inheriting somebody where you can think, right, well, we'll have a bit of fun with him.
What have I got here? I mean, that was one of the things I was going to ask you, because you obviously have got plenty of experience of watching people come through the academy. Yeah. You've seen, a lot of players come and go, and you see these lads up close. I mean, so when you're seeing them and you see them at that level, I mean, can you tell a certain player has got something, is it really hard to kind of...
Well, it's funny, because going back to what you point you were making before about forwards and making an impact, at that level, it's dead easy for them to catch the eye.
When they're playing against the peers.
Exactly, yes. So in some ways that is why it's more difficult for them when they then come in. But yeah, you can tell, Curtis Jones is a good example. Curtis Jones was easily the best player, right, when he was playing. And when they were in the UEFA Youth League, and I think he played in a couple of years of that, and one year he was literally the best player in the entire competition. The opposing managers were saying that, I think it was Napoli said it, somebody else said it as well. And so it's not a surprise that he's gone on to do well in the first team. The ones that they got now, I mentioned Bobby Clark before. Whenever you see him play, you just go, he's good. Kate Gordon's another one. And what's interesting to see what happens with him in the long term, because he was playing in a League Cup semi-final at Arsenal. What was it, 2 years ago?
His stock was pretty high for a little bit.
Yeah, but then he got the injury. Yeah. Like Basetic as well.
Then stock was high, and then it's kind of...
Well, that's what happens when you are that age. Yeah. You will get injuries. I mean, the one I remember, I used to cover Everton as well, was Ross Barkley. Everybody was like, Ross Barkley's amazing. I think he broke his leg 2 or 3 times, or something daft like that. And it took them a while, and he lost. When you are developing at that age, if you miss 6 months, that's like missing years when you get a bit older, because that's very exactly.
Final growth spurt as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of, you're missing out on a very key part. So Kay Gordon's had that. Bobby Clark did have that earlier this season. Conor Bradley. So they all end up having something happens. But yeah, I think Bobby Clark's where you said James McConnell's an interesting one for me, because you could tell he was a decent player, but you couldn't really judge because of how he plays the game. You can't really judge how good he is until he's up against the very best. And I know the game on Sunday, the final, he was coming up against players who'd been playing for the best part of 90 minutes. So don't care how experienced you are going to be tired after 90 minutes. So he was given that, and against the Chelsea team who we explained before were a little bit fearful, stepping off a little bit. But he was still able to do the things he was able to do, and he was part of the move that earned them the corner to get the goal, which Bobby Clark actually had the shot, didn't he? Got deflected. So he's one that's interesting because, as I say, they're kind of players you can only really judge them when they actually make the step up. And whatever Klopp's seen in him way back at in the summer, he's really liked it, and he's stuck with him, and he's paid off.
Is he someone who's more naturally suited to deeper lying low?
Well, it's interesting actually because whenever I'd seen him play at the academy, he was always like a number 8 and a number 6. So when he starts playing for Liverpool first team, he's playing as number 6. So the game on Sunday at Wembley was actually a good showcase of him. Actually, this is actually what he can do.
So it's in a Bobby Clark where
they were because you had Endo as the deep line one. So those two were given a little less responsibility, which I think helped as well. Yeah. Because Endo's Endo. We've seen what he can do over the past 2 or 3 months. He's just everywhere, isn't he? When he's doing, protecting the back four. So he allowed them to just go off and do their thing, and they weren't shy getting back. And I think one of the nice bits is when McConnell did the foul, didn't he, on Cole Palmer? Yeah. Took a yellow card to stop them breaking away, which is what Bobby Clark did to Declan Rice. And so they're not stupid, these people.
No, I mean obviously there's lessons there, don't they? The coaching. These tactical fouls.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've massive arguments with my dad about tactical fouls. He's like, foul shouldn't be part of the game. He says, well, it is. If foul is part of the game, you get punished, and so it is. But that's why football's such an interesting game, because you can foul, and it is part of it.
Yeah, instant justice, but then what you do for
exactly
84 minutes
exactly,
or whatever.
Yeah. So that's what these things you've got to balance.
So I mean, talking about McConnell, do you think he's one of the players who might get a bit more possible game time over the next month or so as we head towards against the international break? And Klopp has already come out and said like a lot of these more medium long term injuries that the Reds have got, Curtis Jones, Trent, etc., they're not going to be back before.
I think you're looking at I know again it's being getting played a bit later on today, but the Southampton game would be amazing if he doesn't play in that. And you're looking at the Europa League games as well, 2 games against Sparta Prague, yeah. So that's only next week.
Yes.
It's like yeah.
And then obviously I think up to that international break we've got Forest, Prague, City, Prague, and then either an FA Cup game or Everton.
I mean, you look at Forest and City, and their 2 games were. I mean, if you ask any Liverpool player, ask any Liverpool fan, they want to win the league.
Yes.
Now, personally speaking, I think these injuries probably mean that's not going to happen. I'd be very surprised if they did it.
It would be a monumental.
Yeah. I think funny enough, they had a decent chance up until a couple of weeks ago, and then losing, no matter how good Kelleher is, losing Alisson is a massive blow, because to win a league you need a great goalkeeper, and Alisson's a great goalkeeper, and Kelleher could end up being a great goalkeeper, but he's a good goalkeeper at the moment. And hopefully he proves me wrong, and he just proves that he was a great goalkeeper. He's been a great goalkeeper all along. And then
I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. Even though I'm like, when it comes to Liverpool, I'm like an eternal optimist. I think we can do absolutely anything. But realistically,
you can't have that many injuries and just sustain it.
I think we would have to really ride our luck in certain situations, or if you want to pull a cliche out there, use the power of Anfield a few times, whatever. Especially with City, it's not impossible, but it's a big ask, and you can't rely on these youngsters to do.
You look at the league games they've got in March. Forest away, they've never won there in the Premier League. City at home, which we know. I know Liverpool's record is amazing, but it's always a difficult game. Yeah. Possibly Everton away, that's always a draw. And then you start off after the international break with Brighton at home, which they've really struggled with in the last couple of years. So they are tough games where you need your best players, and they're not going to have them.
Conversely, if I'm trying to put a positive spin on it.
Oh, we're positive. They've won the League Cup. Yeah, they won the League Cup. How much more positive do you want to get?
If they can really, really push the luck up until the international break, and hopefully start seeing some players return. I mean,
you would like to think that in the next, before the international break, if Szoboszlai, Salah, Núñez, Gravenberch, possibly Jones, I don't know for sure, but certainly if 3 of them aren't back, then something's gone wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Forest game could be one where we see
I think
some of those, if not all those players, return. And I think we've got a really strong starting 11 then. But obviously, what Klopp's done over the past couple of years is starting to rotate his team in game, rather like from match to match. He's being really clever in his use of substitutes. We've seen this when the 5 substitute rule came in. He loves it. I mean, he starts using substitutions earlier in the game than he used to, all this kind of stuff. So we've got a really strong potential starting 11 against Forest, and again a pretty slim bench. But I just think there's possibilities. As I said, we could push our luck a little bit up until maybe you're kind of more long term. Absentees come back. I mean, I'm just really trying to look at ways we can win the league.
Forest away is a big game for all those reasons, because they've got the cup game coming up later today, where they were always going to make changes anyway. But then after that, after the Forest game, they've got Sparta Prague away, in which even if they lose, they got the second leg, so they can still salvage it. But they'll make changes then as well. So it's the Forest game is the one where they've got to try and get as many of the decent, and I think that'll be what's in the thinking of club for either side of those of the Forest game. We just want to get as many of our first choice players fit and available and not absolutely shattered for that game.
So I think City have got less games as well leading up to international vote.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not quite sure I'll be managed.
I mean, to be honest, I don't look at City or Arsenal. Liverpool just got to concentrate on themselves.
You're right there, but I had a little, obviously, and when they're playing, I might have a little, if they get beat, I might have a little look, but inevitably, something bananas happens, and then like last night when we just demolished Luton. I left the house. I think Luton had just scored. Went out to my dad's down the road. When I got there, it was 5-2. So it's like that's massive. They can do that. You're right. Liverpool, I'm sure, like Klopp, he's absolutely nails this to everyone in the club is concentrate on themselves, do your own job. But for now, I'm going to try and stay positive. But
there's nothing wrong with staying positive. We've seen what happened on Sunday for people who've stayed positive.
A dose of Ian Doyle reality doesn't do anything.
It's just pointing out. It's pointing out that it has to be tempered, the expectations, I think. And I think, to be honest, I think most people are like that anyway. They know this will be quite something if we do anything else from this point in.
It'll be phenomenal. I mean, Klopp, I was seeing his presser the other day, he mentioned something about, he wouldn't turn down a trophy parade at the end of the season. So it's like, I don't know.
But he's got a trophy, so they can say goodbye with one.
He's got one. I'm sure, trolls and fans of Liverpool would mock the absolute mania of a Cup farewell tour around the city, but, I can imagine being us, as they say. It
already happened after the Champions League final 2 years ago, where they justified it by saying we already lost the Champions League and the league, but we won 2 cups already this season. This Liverpool speaking, and we never got a chance to go round with the Premier League in 2020. So
he doesn't seem to really listen to outside noise too much anyway.
Oh, he doesn't care. Doesn't even listen to us. Journalists. He doesn't even know who half of us are. He's been there for 8.5 years. I'm sure he doesn't know my name.
Really? Well, he hasn't told you off like some other
journalists. He kind of has mild goes, but not quite in front of the cameras. Like,
does he give you the glare?
Oh yeah, about that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
We seemed in a really good mood this week anyway, which is good. I think that's good to see when he's doing the presses, he comes out and you can tell he's not tense or on edge, but he's got no time for it. I don't really like seeing that. You like seeing that boy in Klopp laughing, seemingly without care in the world. I think that really sets a great tone. I think hopefully before the end of the season we see more of that.
What I would say is when he came out for his press conference after winning the League Cup on Sunday, he's lost his voice slightly because of doing all his screaming and shouting and celebrating and doing all his interviews, and he looked a bit tired. And you're just thinking, and I'm glad he's going at the end of the season, because he's just for him. It's like we put it up right at the start of this year. On the Echo, every now and again we'll do this kind of like Q&As where someone will set a question, we all give an answer. Yeah. And the question was, without any knowledge of what was coming or what had already happened, is do you think Jurgen Klopp will extend his contract at the end of his 2026 wasn't it? He's meant to be going, And I think Paul Gore said somebody else said and I said there's absolutely no chance he's staying beyond.
Really?
I said there's no chance. He says you have no idea. If anybody, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying generally speaking, a lot of people don't have any idea of what it takes out of people to do that. And you look at it and just go pure numbers and go, Benitez was there for 6 years, Julio was there for 6 years, Dalglish was there first time round was for 6 years, Paisley was there for 9, and Shankly was there for 15, right? But social media, in the 60s, the games were hardly ever on television. They were never on live, apart from if it was a final or something like that. And even then, some of them weren't shown live, possibly in Europe. There was never the website, social media, or anything
just
like
not
that.
Stop, isn't it?
So there was none of that. Whereas now, you've seen what it's like just in the last since Klopp actually first started. The focus and the intensity and the spotlight on the managers has just changed. I mean, he makes a bit of a joke about his press conferences, saying he's always got to do them, this, that, and the other. But he does. I know because I'm there at most of them. Not all of them. I'm there at most of them. And you're like, "Oh, here again," says, and he just run out of things to say, and he runs out of things to say, and you run out of things to ask.
How many times can you say?
Exactly, yeah.
Go through the
Exactly, yeah.
cliche?
But that is just an incidental for him. None of that even matters. His main focus is obviously on building a team, getting a team that can win games, getting his players, helping his players fit, and then looking ahead to, right, I need to go and do this, we need to go and do this, always looking ahead and dealing with the present. And for a club like Liverpool, who quite literally are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and were the world champions thanks to Klopp about just over 4 years ago, that after a while you just go, I'm really tired now. And also you've got to bear in mind, he's been living in a foreign country for the past 8 or 9 years. And he's not, during exactly COVID as well. There was that, exactly, and he's just become a granddad recently, really? And I do wonder whether or not he's just gone, you know what, things tend to go on. And one thing that was interesting is he said, look, I've never had a normal life. He says, I don't know whether I'd like it. He says, but I would quite like just to have a little bit of a go and see. I think, what do you reckon? 2 weeks of like, oh.
Yeah, that's not. But I mean, he also was that first sabbatical was obviously cut short when Liverpool came knocking as well. He was meant to have a longer period of time off, and he obviously couldn't resist.
He couldn't resist it, and it turns out that he was right to, purely on the basis of what he said after the final on Sunday, where he said, look, this could never be, what's happened here, not just on that game, although I think he was, the majority of it was referring to the game on Sunday. He said, what's happened here at Liverpool, you can't replicate it. I couldn't have done this somewhere else, and I just think everything's come together and combined, and it's this kind of unique thing. And that's why he referred to it as the most special trophy he'd won, because it probably is, to be honest. Special. Not to say it's the best or the biggest, but it's the most special. Yeah,
enormous,
yeah.
Really.
I mean, I'd liken it to. I mean, I always thought. Funny enough, Klopp actually agreed with us when we said this. When they finished third in 2021, where they were literally nowhere, and Alisson scores the header. Yeah. That's on a par of when he won, got to the Champions League final in 2018. Yeah. Right. And I think this is kind of probably better than them.
That's it. All these achievements are in context.
I mean, it's not going to beat winning the Premier League or winning the Champions League. It's not going to beat that. But in terms of the actual unexpected nature of it,
that's it.
And the pride that he had in the players, that pride probably only rivaled by the Barcelona game in 2019.
Exactly. Football managers kind of ranked their achievements purely in trophies won. Then there'd only be like 4.
Well, that's it. Yeah, exactly.
Managers,
It's more than just about winning stuff.
Yeah, he'll know himself, and his team will know himself how massive that achievement was. But I mean, moving on to you talk about a post-Klopp era there, it might be a good moment to touch on Michael Edwards. He wrote a piece today.
Yes.
About FSG possibly going back to Michael Edwards and trying to.
Well, it's like they gave him a little bit of a nudge, didn't they, after Klopp? I know some people were like, well, surely, why have they waited till now to go and ask him? They knew about Klopp, and it's like, well, they couldn't have done that, could they? Because it only takes that they kept the Klopp thing secret for 2 months was incredible in this day and age. That was pretty incredible. So he's obviously gone, nah, you're all right. I'm doing this. I've been out of it for 18 months, and I'm quite enjoying what he's doing. He's working, isn't he? At I've got his own business. Yeah. With I can't remember the name. It's called Ludatronics or something like that. Yeah.
I had a little look
with Ian Graham, who used to work with at Liverpool. So, and they're working with a couple of clubs already at the moment. Not sure which ones, because I think Bolton's one actually. Well, there's a couple of Premier League clubs as well that they've been dealing with. Now, for him to want to go away from that and put himself back, not in the furnace, but certainly in the coalface, it's going to take a big thing. And I think he would quite like to see, if he's going to come back, he wants total control of the football operation, basically.
That's what I think really alluded to in that article. Is that it's not so much he doesn't want to come to Liverpool, it's like he's got to come back.
Yeah, exactly. So why would he come back to be sporting director? He's done it.
Yeah.
So and what's bigger than a sporting director? He's not going to be the president of FSG. So it's like, well, we need to get something in the middle, and then it's obviously looking at the parameters of it, because he'll be someone who comes in and goes, right, I'm going to take charge of all of this, which presumably would be in charge of the academy as well, and all of that. He'll be in charge of appointing a sporting director, or maybe if they go down a different route and do something a bit different, like could be a technical director, could be a general manager or something, because once Klopp goes, there's a chance to, well, not that they need a fresh start, but that is what it's going to be.
It's a new era.
Exactly, yeah. So that's why some people were asking, like, why is Pep Linders going as well? Why isn't he putting his name forward for the job? And he's gone, well, he said it, didn't he? it was Friday, wasn't it? Friday was talking ahead of the final, and he said, just better to have a clean break, just to get, we can go off and do. Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, he'll get himself a job, probably.
Yeah, he'll have no shortage. I think it's important for him to get the right one. I think.
Well, yeah, because he was at another Dutch club, Magill, I think it was.
Yeah. I always get the pronunciation wrong, so
yeah.
Football.
NEC.
Yeah,
let's call him NEC. Yeah. Not linguistics expert. Don't worry. NEC in Holland, and he took over halfway through the season, and they went down basically, and they were already in trouble. I think it probably was the wrong club, but that's 6 years down the line now since then. Yeah. So
it also speaks highly of him to have a bit of humility to come back to his old job. I think, whereas maybe some other people would rather, Klopp obviously invites them back, thinks a lot of them, but I think to actually come back to a place where you've left to, make your own name in it, and it hasn't really worked out, I think speaks highly of his character as well.
It does. Well, he's very much, now he is Mr. Positive. Yeah. He is the most positive
person. Have you read this
person.
book? I haven't read this book yet.
Not sorry, I haven't read this book yet, no, but I believe that it is quite intense with joy.
It's on my list. Like he's
read some of it.
He's a different kind of character than Klopp, but he is kind of engaging as well, and as you say, he's got that never-ending positivity about him.
Yeah, he doesn't really have, certainly not in his public persona. He has the kind of edge that Klopp has and all the other managers have. So it'll be interesting to see whether he's been keeping that hiding all that time, and exactly how he's going to cope with when things don't go to plan, which is what always happens to every manager.
So to wrap it up, obviously we just spoke then about the kind of path to the international break being kind of pivotal maybe without how the title run might look. Do you think Liverpool get anything from that City game to keep things alive, keep things interesting there? How do you see that pan out up until that kind of final run-in?
Well, I think they can't afford to lose to City. They can't afford to lose. The only good thing, though, is that the game is so far out, is that there's still another 7, 8, 9 games. In fact, what would it be? It'd be 10 games, wouldn't it? They still have another 10 games. Yeah. There's still a lot of sport. You're then running out of games for City to slip up. Yeah. And not just City as well this year, Arsenal as well. And Arsenal have got to go to City. I think Arsenal got a few difficult games towards the end, but they might have the momentum before then that they can then take into that. And I think I've always said, people say the fixture list doesn't mean anything, you've got to play each other twice. It says, well, no, it depends when you play them. Yeah. And look at Liverpool.
Chelsea first game of the season.
Exactly.
Like great results.
Exactly, yeah. And you look at Liverpool, have got to go to Villa still. And Villa beat City and Arsenal, and they beat them in the same week. But Liverpool don't go there until the next to last game of the season. And by then, Villa certainly won't be in title contention. They might be in the top 4, they might be all sorts of whatever. They might not be in the same situation that they were back in December. So when you play teams does matter. And I think Arsenal, that they've got the hard games right at the end, you look at it and think that might not work in their favour, but I think it might do. So you can't discount Arsenal at all, is what I'm saying.
On that point, we'll leave it there. Ian Doyle, talking about football all day, comes on his lunch hour to talk about football before going off to Anfield to
some more football.
Some football and talk about football. He really, really likes football. He's employed to talk about football. Thanks for coming.
He likes getting paid, and he likes tea, and he likes cake as well. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll see you again soon. Cheers.